Hey, it's Julie with Paradigm Interiors, and it is Lunch with Julie today. And I am talking about mailers that you might get from companies probably local to you that sell kitchen countertops and cabinets and perform remodeling services. And what it is about those particular offers that can sometimes be misleading. And where I came up with this idea for covering this is I received a mailer and it had a kind of a neat kitchen, and I wish I could find it. I actually tried to save it so that I could use it as a visual for the video today, and then I was looking around for it and couldn't find it. I guess I must have tossed it, but there was an offer on there that said that you could get a kitchen remodeled for under $5,000. And then they had this really cool looking, kitchen with some shiplap and these custom shelving units. And, it was a rather big kitchen with a really nice island with a lot of seating. So the island itself was probably 10 or 12 feet long. And the kitchen itself was, probably roughly a 10 by 10, maybe more like a 15 by 15 kitchen. But the offer on the back, so, there's a couple of things that I want to break down and kind of take apart and unpack for you on the offer, because of course there was fine print. And so that's what I want to talk about first, is what was included in that offer. And when you looked at the fine print of what was included for just under $5,000, I think it was $4,995 or something like that. It was, basically said for a 10 by 10 kitchen that you could get countertops and cabinets. Now, and it said solid wood cabinets. And so we'll talk about that in just a minute, because there's some really big misunderstandings about cabinets and what cabinets are made out of, and how they're made. But the biggest misinformation, or I felt like sort of false advertising on there, is that they're really just selling you the countertop and the cabinets, which even for a 10 by 10, for a 10 by 10 kitchen, that is not a lot of money for even just counters and cabinets. And basically, when you see those types of offers, and you see even for counters and cabinets, that's a really kind of a lowball offer. And for countertops, if you have a 10 by 10 kitchen, that means that you're probably going to have about 40 square feet of countertops, maybe a little bit more. And even with the least expensive countertops, you are looking at, at least a couple of $1,000s for the countertops alone. So that's eating up about half of your budget already for that. And then they said solid wood cabinets. So let's talk a little bit about solid wood cabinets. I don't know what they're talking about. There's literally no such thing as solid wood cabinets. And I hear people say this all the time. They say, oh, well, they told me my cabinets were solid wood, and then I realized that they were made out of plywood. And all cabinets are made of plywood. Please write this down, commit it to memory, understand that the boxes on the back of the cabinet, so the part of the cabinet that you don't see, that is always made of plywood, and you actually want it to be made of plywood. You wouldn't want a slab of wood to be made into a box, because it's not going to sit and wear evenly, because over time, especially in a place like Florida, where we have, humidity in the summer, a lot of humidity in the summer and less humidity in the fall. We have a lot of rainfall. That causes wood to warp over time. And so if you had a cabinet that was made of solid wood, it eventually would warp and the sides would kind of bow in, and it would actually be structurally a very sound cabinet. The better option is actually to use plywood to build the box of the cabinet. Now, the doors of the cabinet can be made of wood, but oftentimes even a shaker style cabinet that has the rails and stiles to the frame of the door is wood. Oftentimes the inside won't be made of wood for exactly the reason that I just told you, which is those wood slabs tend to warp. So often they will use MDF and they will paint that, but you may have a piece of plywood there or something that's just a little more dimensionally stable than a solid slab of wood that can warp over time. So when you tell me that you're going to give me solid wood cabinets, that really has no meaning to me, and it's extremely misleading because even custom cabinet makers, and I know several, do not use solid wood to make their cabinets. They use wood for the doors and they use plywood for the boxes or the frame of the cabinet. So that's another one. So what was not included? So let's go back to the what's included. Here's what's not included in that number that they give you. And that number that they gave you, what was not included was the labor. There was no mention that any demolition would be done for that amount of money or any of the labor that is included in rebuilding the kitchen would be included with that. And it was insinuating that it would just be the cabinets and the countertop, or that you could get the whole kitchen done, and you really couldn't. That's not really what they were selling you. They weren't selling you appliances with that. They weren't selling you plumbing fixtures or hardware for the cabinets. Typically, the cost of per square foot of countertop is the installed price. So typically that does include the fabrication and installation of the countertops, but it doesn't for cabinets usually. Usually you're just buying the cabinet and then there is a separate cost for the labor. Most cabinet companies don't do that. Custom cabinet companies do though. So if you're buying custom cabinets from a cabinet maker, then chances are they will have included that amount in their estimate for you. And so the third thing is kitchen remodel for under $5,000, probably not. It definitely, the kitchen that they showed and the image that they gave on the front of the flyer definitely was not a $5,000 or less kitchen remodel. You could certainly give your kitchen a facelift for $5,000 or less, depending on the size of your kitchen. But understand that you're probably not going to be able to get new appliances. Most kitchens, medium-sized kitchens, it's about $5,000 just for countertops. So to say that you could remodel somebody's kitchen for under $5,000 is very deceptive. And the reason why I did want to talk about this is because when we in the design and remodeling world interact with clients, one of the things that I feel like there's a lot of misinformation about is how much it costs to do some of these projects. And that, we've kind of gotten into so much into home improvement television and what they say that things will cost on there. But what you have to understand is they're really not giving you the true cost of what it would cost in the real world to do something like that. Number one, they never include the cost of the labor or a designer's fees that would be collected. They're really only including the cost of how much the goods cost. And oftentimes, they have sponsorships and they have things that get donated to the shows and things that are subsidized by their by the people who are sponsoring the show. So the cost of doing something like that when you're watching a show that is made for television isn't necessarily going to be reflective of what something costs in the real world, which is a kind of a disconnect from what you see on TV and what you see in the real world. So you get sticker shock. So a lot of people, I'll have a consultation call, and, they'll say, oh, well, I have a $15,000 budget for a complete bathroom remodel, or, a $10,000 budget to completely remodel a kitchen. And it's not possible to completely remodel or gut a bathroom or a kitchen and use any kind of quality materials, pay an interior designer, because with an interior designer, you're expecting kind of an upgrade from what would be, the regular things that you would get, better ideas, and better ideas are going to cost more money, right? So, and I'm definitely in my own projects, I work with people's budgets, and I use a balance of, high-end and luxury things with, less expensive items where we can, to work with a budget and get people what they really want. But the reality is that there's a certain amount of cost that's associated with, doing a kitchen or a bathroom and doing a good job at it, because there are labor costs, there are design fees, there are the cost of goods that are sold to the client. So with a kitchen, that's cabinets, it can be flooring, backsplash, fixtures, plumbing fixtures, hardware for the cabinets, which those are not cheap, handles and knobs and things like that. There's, upgrade for the cabinets. So if you want to have rollout trays or, a recycling center for your kitchen, those are more costly. And then you have the cabinets themselves, and cabinets, good quality cabinets, aren't cheap. And if you want something that's going to last a long time, that is of good quality, it's going to last and it's going to look good for a long time, then you're going to be paying, money for that, more money than you would for something that is cheaper and not meant to last as long. On top of all of that, if you have any really unique custom features, you're going to need a better line of cabinets, because the less expensive line of cabinets, one of the ways that they contain their costs is by reducing the amount of things that they produce. So if you have, 40 different cabinets in your cabinet line versus a company that has 200 different, or 2,000 different options in their cabinet line, then it's going to cost more to produce something like that. So I hope that was helpful. I just get so annoyed and frustrated when I get things like that in the mail, because it starts to set people's expectations that remodeling a kitchen should be cheap, and that you shouldn't pay any more than the bare minimum that you absolutely have to pay to get a kitchen remodeled or a bathroom remodeled. When the reality is, if you want something that is nice and high quality and beautiful and has some luxury to it, you have to look well beyond these types of offers, well beyond what you're seeing on the home improvement television shows. Trying not to use any specific names of specific things on there, but you have to think beyond what those kind of minimum costs are that they're telling you about. And then the solid wood cabinets, there's no such thing. If somebody's saying it's a solid wood cabinet, I would question them a lot about what they mean by solid wood cabinets, because there just isn't such a thing. And if you did have somebody build a solid wood cabinet for you, you would not be real happy with it in the end, and it would cost a lot to build a solid wood cabinet. So number one tip, try not to pay attention to things like that. pay attention to what you want, what your goals are when you're doing a remodel. And then my second tip is if somebody tells you that your cabinets are solid wood, you need to ask a lot of questions to them about what they mean by solid wood. All right, well, that is it for today. Next week, Lunch with Julie, we'll be talking about the principles of design. And I think I'm going to start with scale because it's kind of like space. It's one of the most important of the design principles, and you will find that you use space a lot. Space and balance. Those are kind of two biggies when it comes to designing and particularly decorating and picking out furniture for your home. All right, have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.